This is a real simple little dry fly called the F fly. It's from Peter Gathercole's book, The Fly Tying Bible. Can be tied anywhere from a 10 to whatever, 28, I guess 32 if you want to get that small. This is a size 18 dry fly. I'm using olive thread. Besides the thread, there are just two ingredients. The fibers from a pheasant tail create the body. So I'm tying them in by the butt end. Just a few wraps back above the barb where this is a barbless hook, but where the barb would be. Bring my thread back up behind the eye and then wrap those fibers around the hook shank to create the body. You can put down some glue if you want to strengthen those a little bit. Some super glue along the top of the hook shank wouldn't be a bad idea, I guess. And then just make sure that the fibers are long enough so that you have enough to wrap all the way up to the eye of the hook. I've used 4 fibers, that way it takes less wraps to cover the distance. And I don't use hackle plier when I have multiple fibers. It's hard for the hackle plier, at least my plier, to grab onto them. But that does mean it's a little trickier to hold them together and wrap around the hook. I find that if I just take my finger and push them under, then that works fairly well. Also, the hackle plier tends to break the tender tips of these fibers. So I've done 3 over wraps and do some under wraps. Make sure I catch those fibers in, then clip out the tips. The wing on this fly is cul-de-canard, and that's what's going to make this fly float. The natural oils in these feathers. So I have 2 of them stacked so that the tips are together. And then I'm just laying those on top of my hook shank, kind of measuring the length of the wing by the length of the hook shank. A little bit longer than the hook shank is probably fine. So I'm imitating a great number of possible flies, mayflies, caddisflies, some other flies that are just sitting on the water. A couple wraps over the canard to catch it in, and then some under wraps. And then what I do have to make sure of here is to be careful not to crowd the eye. And then I'll just clip off all the butt ends here, and I can use the angle of that down eye hook to help me get the right angle there. Then wrap up over those ends that I just cut for the head. And put a whip finish on that. I will be putting a little bit of head cement on as well. The head cement that I use is a diluted Goop, and I'll put the recipe for that in the description. I just use a needle and dip it into my bottle. Just get a drop and put that right on the head, and that'll soak in. It'll dry clear. When it's wet, it looks darker, but it will dry the color of whatever's underneath of it. And then, just to make sure that my eye is clean, I take a dry fly hackle feather, and I can maybe push that down through the eye. This is also going to make sure that my eye is open enough for the tippet. There we go. And I can just pull that feather all the way through, and it will clean all the glue out of the eye, and I have a clean eye. So the F fly from the Fly Tying Bible by Peter Gathercole.